Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. We'll be discussing the topic meaning of environmental physiology. Animals and plants exist in a dynamic relationship with their environment, constantly responding to changes in temperature, humidity, light, and other external factors. Environmental physiology explores how living things adapt to these environmental conditions, ensuring their survival and productivity. So we'll get to know more about this in the topic environmental physiology. And by the end of the lesson, the student or you should be able to define environmental physiology. You should also be able to state the effects of changes in climates such as temperature, relative humidity, light, on the reproduction, growth, milk production, and egg formation in our farm animals. Let's start with the meaning of environmental physiology. Now, this is concerned with the effects of the environment or environmental factors like temperature, rainfall, wind, sunlight, etc., on the growth and performance of farm animals. So it will interest you to know that temperature does affect the performance of our farm animals, as well as rainfall, as well as wind, also sunlight, when we talk about light intensity. All of these can affect the performance of our farm animals. If they're in an extreme level, it could have a negative effect on the animal. And we need to know how to manage our farm animals or to manage the situation as regards the performance or comfort of our farm animals. So this is the meaning of environmental physiology. It has to do with the effects of environmental factors on the performance of farm animals. Now let's look at the effects of changes in climate on growth. How does the changes in climate affect the growth of our farm animals? Now, extremes of either hot or cold conditions can reduce the performance of farm animals. When the weather is too hot, the animals will not thrive well. They could suffer from heat stress. And also when it is too cold, they could also suffer from respiratory tract diseases, and then this could affect the performance of our farm animals. Extremes of low temperature leads to retarded growth or even death of chicks. Now, chicks are very sensitive to temperature, especially poultry animals. They're sensitive to temperature. They could survive heat stress. They could also survive the issue of cold, especially when they are chicks. And that's why in poultry production, you need to provide some form of warmth during the breeding stage of these animals to reduce mortality rate, which has to do with the death of chicks. Now, at high temperatures, the feed intake in chicks is also reduced. This temperature causes a lot of discomfort with the chicks, and as a result of this, they tend to reduce the feed that they consume because they start panting. You notice the chicks panting, opening their mouth and trying to gasp in more air, and this causes a lot of discomfort. That's the temperature. When the temperature is too high, and this could also lead to them not consuming enough food, and as a result of that, they will experience a reduced growth rate. High temperatures can also affect feather coverage in chicks because these feathers will not develop properly due to the ability of the chick trying to adapt to the extreme temperature condition or the extreme weather condition. And as a result of this, it could also lead to pecking, that's cannibalism, from other chicks present in the pen. High rainfall can also lead to the multiplication of fly. Remember, we're talking about climate, and the factors of climate include relative humidity, temperature, rainfall. So these are factors of climate. So we're looking at the effects of climate on growth. Rainfall is also a factor of climate, and when there's a lot of rainfall or high rainfall, it could lead to the multiplication of fly, which is a disease, a pest that transmits the disease trypanosomiasis, which is also known as sleeping sickness and also known as nagana. Now, this disease has a negative effect or impact on animal production, and it could lead to a reduced growth rate or even death of farm animals. High humidity in poultry houses could cause moldiness of feed. Now, humidity has to do with the moisture content in the atmosphere, and when it is high, the feed that is consumed by the farm animals become moldy, and of course, this could lead to low feed intake, and once there's low feed intake, there will also be retarded growth of the farm animals. Wind aids the spread of diseases. Certain diseases are airborne, like tuberculosis. It's an airborne disease, and once the wind is much, it could enhance the spread of diseases. And wind is air in motion, so of course this could lead to the spread of certain diseases, as I mentioned earlier, tuberculosis, which could cause retarded growth in farm animals as well as death of farm animals. High temperature can lead to heat stress in farm animals, especially animals like cattle, pigs, and poultry. Poultry is usually affected by heat stress, which would cause mortality in poultry birds, as well as pigs too. And as a result of this, measures have to be put in place to control this heat stress. For the pigs, a wallow could be placed, which could help them to, when they wallow in which like a liquid medium, to help cool. That they go into it and cool off themselves. This helps to control heat stress. And in poultry houses, this is the reason why we have open-sided buildings in poultry houses, because heat stress affects poultry birds a lot. So it could lead to heat stress, and that could affect the performance of the farm animals. Duration of light controls time spent at feeding, which regulates growth and the rate of feathering. Now, when animals do not experience enough light in their pens or in their houses, farmhouses, this could also reduce the time they spend feeding. For the birds, they roost, thus they go to sleep early. So that's the reason why light should be provided in our poultry houses into the night, to encourage them to feed so that they can grow well, and their rate of feather production will be high enough, will be good enough. So this is how light actually affects the growth rate of our farm animals. Let's look at the effects of changes in climate on reproduction of livestock. High temperature or heat stress can cause abortion in farm animals. High temperature can also lead to low rate of conception. That's the ability of an animal to conceive, that's to get pregnant. High temperature can lead to low rate of conception. Egg production is also drastically reduced at extreme temperatures. So you can see that when temperatures are high, the rate of egg production in our poultry farms gets reduced. High temperature can also reduce the secretion of sexual hormones in farm animals. So you can see that there are a lot of negative effects on our farm animals whenever the temperature is high. High temperature can also reduce sexual activities in farm animals. The discomfort experienced due to high temperatures prevents the animals from getting involved in sexual activities. And of course, if this occurs, the rate of reproduction will also, that's the production of young ones, will be reduced. And that's not what any farmer would want to experience. Let's look at the effects of changes in climate on milk production. Now, milk spoils at a temperature of 37 degrees centigrade. So once milk experiences temperature of this level, spoilage microorganisms begin to act, and the milk will get spoiled. So you can see how temperature can affect the quality of milk. Pathogenic bacteria in milk are also destroyed when temperature is above 74 degrees centigrade. That process is called pasteurization. So you can see how temperature can also be used in a positive way to control the growth of microorganisms in milk products or to help preserve our milk products. High temperature causes heat stress in farm animals, and this heat stress could also lead to a reduction in milk production in our dairy animals. So this is another negative effect of high temperature in farm animals. Extremes of temperature affect feed intake, and this will lead to low milk production. So when our dairy animals are experiencing extreme temperature, this will definitely affect their rate of consumption of feed. And once their rate of consumption of feed is reduced, the tendency for the animal to also reduce this level of milk production will occur. So this is another negative effect of temperature on milk production. Physiological processes are retarded at extremes of temperature, and this could also lead to low milk production. Let's look at the effects of changes in climate on egg production. High temperature causes heat stress in poultry, as I've stated earlier, and this could lead to a reduction in feed intake, and of course it will also lead to a reduction in the rate of egg production in our poultry birds, that's for layers. So this is a negative effect of high temperature on egg production. Now, low temperature can lead to decrease in feed efficiency, which could also lead to low egg production. So you can see when the temperature is high, it has a negative effect. When it is low, it also has a negative effect. And this could also lead to, that's low temperature could lead to low egg production because their rate of feed consumption is also affected as well. At high temperatures, feed intake decreases, and this could also lead to what? Low egg production. At high temperatures, fertility, that's of the eggs, and also the hatchability of eggs in breeder birds also decreases. So this is another negative effect of high temperatures on poultry production because poultry birds lay eggs. Extreme temperatures can also lead to decrease in egg quality. The shelf life of eggs, that's the extent to which they can stay fresh for human consumption, is also decreased. So this is another negative effect of temperature on egg production. Light controls egg laying in birds. Birds have to be exposed to light to encourage ovulation and then development of formation of eggs. So as they eat into the night, the light also has a way of enhancing the rate of ovulation in birds, and this could also lead to good egg laying. So this is another way light affects egg production. Okay, we stated so far I've come to the end, but let's just have a recap on what we've learned before we go into answering some questions. Now, we stated that environmental physiology is concerned with effects of environmental factors like temperature, rainfall, wind, sunlight on the growth and performance of farm animals. We also looked at the effects of changes in climate on growth, and some of which include extremes of either hot or cold conditions to reduce the performance of farm animals. We also said that at high temperatures, feed intake in chicks is reduced, and this could lead to a reduced level of growth. We looked at the effects of changes in climate on reproduction of livestock. Here, egg production is drastically reduced at extremes of temperature. These are some of the effects. We also stated that high temperature could lead to low rates of conception. That's the ability of animals to get pregnant. So it leads to low rate of conception in farm animals. Then we also looked at the effects of changes in climate on egg production. We said at high temperatures, fertility and hatchability in breeder birds gets decreased. We also said that at low temperatures, there's a decrease in feed efficiency in poultry birds, and this could lead to low egg production. So let's take a look at some questions. To test our level of understanding of what we have just learned. Now, this first question says, which of the following is not an abiotic condition that affects livestock production? Remember when we talked about the effect of climate on egg production, milk production, on growth, all of these, and I gave examples of climate or factors of climate, which are temperature, rainfall, sunlight. Remember, we did not mention anything living, which is a biotic factor. So in this case, the question is asking which of the following is not an abiotic condition that affects livestock production. Now we need to understand what abiotic condition is or factor is. These are non-living factors, and environmental factors are non-living, like sunlight, rainfall, temperature, while biotic factors or biotic conditions are the living factors like predator, soil-borne soil organisms. All of these are living factors. So in this case, which are biotic factors? So the question here is, which of the following is not an abiotic condition? So the answer here is D. This question says, which of the following factor does not influence the distribution of cattle in West Africa? Now, when we look at this, we're looking at factors that affect the distribution of animals. And in this case, we would look at what could possibly be the answer, what could affect distribution. Here we have pasture, here we have light, here we have diseases, and here we have rainfall. So this question should be light, because pasture can affect animal production, which has to do with cattle. Light, which is a physiological factor. Disease is an abiotic factor. Rainfall is also an abiotic factor. But in this case, the ideal answer here, disease could affect the distribution of cattle. Rainfall could also affect the distribution of cattle. But light would not affect the distribution of cattle. Yes, light could affect the production could affect egg production in poultry birds, but when it comes to cattle, light does not have an effect. So in this case, light is the answer, because if it was poultry birds, then light will not be the answer. But in this case, for cattle, when we talked about light has an effect on poultry production, especially egg production. So, but in this case, we're talking about cattle, so light does not have an effect. So the answer is B. Okay, this question says, a wallow should be provided in the pen of pigs in order to A. Reduce the feed intake of pigs, B. Increase the water intake of pigs, C. Enable the pigs to swim, and D. Cool the temperature of pigs. Remember when I was talking about the effects of temperature on animals, where we have extremes of temperature, which could cause heat stress in poultry birds, in pigs, in cattle. I mentioned that wallows are usually provided in pig pens in order to help, which is water provided in an excavation with the pig pen, and this helps to cool pigs. So the answer here is D. So thank you so much for your time. So I will encourage you to go through more questions to enhance your level of understanding, or to test your level of understanding. Thank you.